The sky was cloudy, and the wind blew cold through the quiet streets of a small town. Most people had already gone home. Lights turned off one by one as night slowly covered the town. Only a few cars passed by now and then. Daniel walked alone, with his hands in his jacket pockets, his boots splashing in small puddles left by the early rain. He had just finished his late shift at the gas station, tired and hungry. He took his usual shortcut through the back road that passed by an old church. The church hadn't been used in years. People said it was haunted. But Daniel didn't believe in such things. It was just a building, old and empty. As he neared the building, he noticed something strange. A soft glow behind the church wall caught his eye at first. He thought it was a trick of the light, or maybe someone left a flashlight there. But as he got closer, he realized it wasn't a light at all. Someone was sitting there. Daniel stopped in his tracks. A girl, no, not quite a normal girl, was crouched on the cold ground, her arms around her knees, shivering. Her skin had a faint silver tone, and it seemed to shine softly even in the dark. Her hair was long and white like moonlight, wet from the rain. She wore nothing but torn strips of cloth wrapped around her. She looked lost and scared. "Hey, are you okay?" Daniel asked quietly, stepping closer. The girl didn't answer. Her eyes widened, glowing softly like her skin. They were a strange color somewhere between blue and violet. Daniel noticed cuts and bruises on her arms. She looked hurt, cold, and confused. She tried to speak, but the words made no sense. "You're freezing," Daniel said, quickly taking off his jacket and wrapping it around her shoulders. "Come on, you can't stay out here." She didn't fight. She was too weak. When he offered his hand, she took it. Her fingers were cold, shaking slightly. He helped her stand up. She walked slowly, like someone who had been hurt badly or had traveled a long way. Daniel didn't think much. He just acted. There was no one around, no one to ask questions. He brought her to his small home a few blocks away. It wasn't much, just a two-room house with old furniture and a leaky roof, but it was warm and safe. Once inside, he gave her a towel, a warm blanket, and set a small heater near her. She looked at everything with wide, curious eyes, like she had never seen anything like it before. He offered her some soup, but she didn't eat. Instead, she just sat quietly and touched the warm mug like it was something magical. "You don't speak English, do you?" Daniel asked, sitting across from her. She tilted her head slightly, as if trying to understand. After a few seconds, she softly said, "No, English, no." Her voice was soft, almost musical. "Okay," Daniel said, nodding slowly. "You're not from around here, or maybe not from this world at all." He said the last part as a joke, but the way she looked at him made him stop smiling. He watched as strange symbols on her arm glowed for a moment and faded again. It wasn't a tattoo. It looked alive, like light moving under her skin. "What are you?" he whispered. She didn't answer. Later that night, while she rested on the couch under the blanket, Daniel sat on his bed thinking. He couldn't sleep. His mind was full of questions. Was she in danger? Should he call the police? But something inside him said no, not yet. Not until he understood what was going on. In the middle of the night, he heard her whispering softly in a language he had never heard before. She wasn't talking to him. It sounded like a prayer, or maybe a cry. The next morning, she was still there. Her wounds looked a little better. Daniel made pancakes, and again she didn't eat, but she watched him with wonder. Like the sound of the stove and the smell of food was all new to her. He found an old notebook and drew simple pictures. A house, the sun, the moon, a ship. When he showed her the ship, her eyes widened. "Home," she said quietly, pointing at it. "Gone." "Fire," crashed the sky. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "You came from the sky?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "You crashed." She nodded again, then touched her chest and said, "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated. "That's your name?" She nodded again. Daniel smiled a little. "I'm Daniel." She looked at him carefully and then tried to repeat. "Danielle." Close enough. For the next few days, Daniel kept her hidden. He didn't tell anyone. He helped her stay warm, gave her his clothes, and taught her a few words each day. In return, Lyra would show him strange things. She could move small objects without touching them. She could make light come from her hands. Once, when she cut her finger, the wound healed in seconds. It was clear she wasn't human. But Daniel didn't feel afraid. He felt something else. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, not with fear, but with quiet trust. She had come from the stars, and he had found her behind an old church like some forgotten treasure. He had no idea that his life was about to change forever, and he definitely didn't know that Lyra was no ordinary alien. She was born of royal blood. The days passed slowly, but each one brought something new. Daniel had never expected to live with someone from another world, yet Lyra was there, sleeping on his couch, learning new words, watching TV like it was magic, and staring out the window at the sky. She had started to understand more English now. She spoke in short sentences and asked questions with curious eyes. Sometimes she'd point to simple things and ask, "What this?" Daniel always answered with a smile. "That's a microwave. Microwave. It heats food fast." She would nod, amazed by something so normal to him. But strange things still happened. When Lyra touched metal, it sometimes glowed. She once made his broken radio work by placing her hand on it. Daniel tried not to panic, but he knew these weren't normal skills. She wasn't just any alien. She was something rare, something special. One evening, while they were sitting at the table, Lyra looked up and said something that surprised him. "They come." Daniel blinked. "Who?" She pointed upward, to the sky. "From sky. Bad ones. They look for me." Daniel felt a chill. "You mean more aliens?" Lyra nodded. Her face looked serious. "They hurt my ship, crashed me, want no return. If return, bad for them." Daniel leaned forward. Why are you important to them?" Lyra was quiet. Then she touched the side of her neck. Her skin lit up, and glowing marks appeared, like lines and symbols moving gently beneath her skin. "Royal blood," she said softly. "Princess." Daniel stared at her. "You're a princess?" She nodded again, slowly. "My people, big kingdom, many planets. I next, father, mother, lost in war. I escape. Crash here." Daniel didn't know what to say. The girl he had found behind a church, scared and barely dressed, was not just from another world. She was a royal heir, hiding from enemies who wanted her gone. "Do they know you're here?" "Maybe." Crash beacon. "They fine. How long do we have?" Lyra looked out the window. "Not long." That night, Daniel sat alone after she went to sleep. He felt overwhelmed. Alien ships could come to Earth. What would the government do if they found her? What would other aliens do if they came first? He had no idea how to protect a princess from space, but he had already promised her safety without even knowing the truth. The next morning, Daniel saw something strange on the news. A bright object had been spotted flying across the sky. It moved too fast for any aircraft. Some thought it was a meteor. Others thought it was a drone. Daniel knew better. He turned off the TV and looked at Lyra. "It's starting, isn't it?" She nodded slowly. Daniel knew he had to think fast. "We need to hide you somewhere safer." He remembered the old emergency shelter deep in the forest just outside town. It had been built during wartime and was now forgotten by most people. The place was underground, covered in moss and hidden by trees, perfect for staying out of sight. They packed what little they could, some food, water, and a few clothes. Lyra still wore Daniel's coat, though it looked far too big for her. Her skin glowed less now, as if she was conserving energy. They walked through the woods quietly. Birds chirped above, and the wind rustled the leaves, but Daniel couldn't stop looking at the sky. Once they reached the shelter, Lyra looked around and whispered, "Safe inside." The air was cold, but it was dry and dark. The place still had an old power switch. Daniel tried it, and surprisingly, a dim light flickered to life. "You can stay here for now," he said. "I'll bring supplies every day." Lyra looked at him, eyes soft. "You kind, Daniel." He gave a small smile. "You're my friend. I won't let anything happen to you." That night, Daniel returned home. But sleep didn't come. Something deep inside told him more was coming. And he was right. The next day, Daniel's friend Max, who worked at a satellite station, stopped by. Max looked nervous. "Hey, you got a second?" Max asked. Daniel nodded. "What's wrong? You won't believe what we picked up. Strange signals from orbit. Ships. Big ones. Not from Earth. Military scrambling. But they're trying to keep it quiet." Daniel's heart pounded. "What kind of ships?" "Not ours. And not peaceful either. These things just parked above. It's like they're looking for something." Daniel stayed quiet, pretending not to know. That evening, he rushed to the shelter. Lyra sat quietly, eyes closed, breathing slowly. He told her everything. "They're here," he said. "They're looking for you." Lyra opened her eyes. "Bounty hunters. Not royal guards. They sell me." Daniel shook his head. "We won't let that happen. We'll find a way." Somehow, she reached out and held his hand. Her touch was warm now, full of silent trust. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But deep down, he knew this. He wasn't just protecting a lost girl anymore. He was guarding a princess from a war across the stars. And the galaxy was coming for her. The air was heavy with tension. Daniel walked through the forest again, holding a backpack filled with food and water. The trees around him whispered with the wind. But he wasn't focused on nature today. He was thinking about Lyra, about what she said, and about the ships now floating somewhere above the clouds, searching. When Daniel reached the hidden shelter, he tapped twice on the old metal door. It slid open slowly. Lyra stood inside, her silver eyes watching him closely. "You okay?" He asked. Double quotes, "Yes," she answered quietly. "But I feel them closer." Daniel handed her the bag. Food, water, and a small radio. "You can listen to news when I'm not here." Lyra took the items and smiled a little. "Thank you, Daniel. You don't have to thank me every time," he said, trying to keep things light. Friends help each other. Lyra looked at the radio for a moment, then asked, "You trust others?" Daniel paused. "Some people. Not all." She tilted her head. "If you tell someone, they may give me away." "I won't tell anyone," Daniel said firmly. "Not unless I know it's safe." Lyra seemed satisfied with his answer. She sat on the old chair by the corner, and Daniel noticed her hands glowing softly again. Her energy was coming back. "How long until they find you?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Days, maybe less. They track royal energy. I tried to hide it, but hard." Daniel looked at the sky through the narrow opening in the shelter wall. "Sooner or later. They'll come." Later that night, Daniel visited his friend Max again, hoping for updates. Max was quiet, his face pale. More ships came. Max whispered, "Not just orbiting. One touched down last night in the hills near the old mines." Daniel's heart sank. "Has anyone seen them?" "Only one farmer," Max said. He said he saw tall creatures in armor, scanning the ground. They didn't speak, just stared at him with glowing red eyes. Daniel knew right away. Bounty hunters. Like Lyra had warned him, he thanked Max and hurried back to the shelter. They landed, he told her. Not far. They're walking around, searching. Lyra stood up slowly, her body tense. "They smell energy. My kind is a signature. If close, they find." Daniel thought fast. "Can you hide it?" "Not fully. But I'd try." She sat down again, closing her eyes, focusing. For hours, she stayed like that. Her skin stopped glowing. Even the marks on her arms faded slightly. Daniel watched in silence. She wasn't just hiding. She was fighting her own nature. But they couldn't hide forever. Early the next morning, Daniel saw something that made his blood run cold. A dark shadow moved across the sky. It wasn't a plane. It was silent and moved fast. He ran into town, trying not to panic. People were acting strange, pointing at the sky, whispering. The news said it was a weather drone. Daniel knew better. He rushed to Max again. "Any news?" Max nodded, pale again. "They scanned the whole town last night, picked up strange energy readings in the woods." Daniel's heart pounded. "They're close." Max looked him in the eyes. "Daniel, What's going on? Are we in danger? Daniel hesitated, then lied. I don't know. Maybe. Just stay alert. He left quickly and went back to the shelter. Running this time, they found a trail. He told Lyra. They're coming. She stood, calm but ready. No choice now. Must run. Move far. Where? Daniel asked. They'll follow wherever we go. Lyra looked at him. Unless I send message. What kind of message? To my people. The loyal ones. If alive, they come. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay, do it. She reached into the bag she came with, one Daniel had never dared to open before. From it, she pulled a small cube that shimmered with colors. She whispered into it in her own language, then placed it on the ground. The cube lit up. Symbols floated above it, then vanished. Message sent, she said. Now we wait. But waiting wouldn't be easy. Hours later, the ground shook. Not like an earthquake, but like something heavy had landed. Nearby, Daniel peeked outside and saw a massive figure moving between the trees. It was tall, armored, and carried a long staff that glowed red. Its face was hidden behind a dark helmet. Daniel ducked back inside. They're here, he whispered. Lyra stood, her hand glowing slightly. Go. I stopped them. No, Daniel said. I'm not leaving you. They hurt you? I don't care. A loud thud echoed outside. Then another. They were at the door. Daniel grabbed a piece of metal pipe from the corner. I may not have powers, but I'm not running. Lyra looked at him for a moment, then smiled softly. You brave, just stupid, he said, standing beside her. The metal door began to bend inward as something pounded on it from outside. Lyra stepped forward and raised her hand. Light burst from her palm. It wasn't bright enough to be seen from far, but inside the shelter, it was like a star had been born. The door blasted open, but not by the hunters. It was pushed aside by a new figure. An alien, tall and dressed in golden armor, stepped in. His voice was deep and calm. Princess Lyra, he said in her language, we received your call. Lyra's eyes lit up. Guardian Vane, you came. The golden warrior nodded and turned to Daniel. You protected her. I tried, Daniel said, lowering the pipe. Then you have earned the honor of the royal line. Daniel didn't know what that meant, but he knew they weren't alone anymore. The enemy hunters were near, but so was help. The real fight was about to begin. The golden warrior's arrival changed everything. Vane stood tall in the dim light of the shelter, his armor shining softly. He looked at Daniel with respect. You protected Princess Lyra, Vane said quietly. That is brave for a human. Daniel shrugged, still holding the metal pipe. I'm no soldier. Just a guy who didn't want to see a girl get hurt. Lyra smiled softly. Daniel is more than that. He is my friend. Vane nodded, then turned to Lyra. We must leave now. The hunters are gathering outside. They won't give up. Lyra took a deep breath. But where? To my ship, Vane said. Far from here, safe. But we must move fast. Daniel looked outside. Shadows moved between the trees. Figures creeping closer, scanning with glowing eyes. They were coming for Lyra and for anyone who helped her. How do we get there? Daniel asked. Follow me, Vane said. They climbed out into the night. The forest was alive with strange noises, cracks of branches, the rustle of leaves. Daniel felt his heart pounding. Vy and led them through hidden paths known only to few. Lyra stayed close to Daniel, her hand brushing his arm for comfort after a long walk. They reached a clearing. There, hidden behind thick trees, was a sleek ship unlike anything Daniel had seen. It was smooth and silver, with soft lights glowing along its sides. This is our chance, Vane said. But before they could reach the ship, a group of armored figures appeared, blocking their path. The bounty hunters had arrived in full force. Daniel stepped forward. We don't want to fight. One hunter laughed, voice cold. You have something we want. Hand her over. Vane raised his staff, its red glow lighting the clearing. You will not take her. A fierce battle began. Daniel dodged and ducked, using the shadows to hide. He saw Vane moving with power, striking with the glowing staff that sent bursts of energy. Lyra closed her eyes and whispered. Her hands glowed brighter, and waves of light pushed the hunters back. Daniel found a fallen branch and swung it at a hunter who got too close. He wasn't a warrior, but fear made him brave. The fight lasted minutes, but felt like hours. Slowly, the hunters began to retreat, injured and surprised by the humans' defense. "Go," Vane said urgently. "To the ship, now." They ran through the clearing, heartbeats racing. Inside the ship, the door closed behind them with the softest. Lyra sat by the control panel, her fingers flying over buttons and screens. "We leave Earth," she said. "They will follow." Daniel looked out the window, watching the dark forest disappear. "Where will they go?" "Home," Lyra said. "But Earth now important. Humans protect me. Some will watch." Vane nodded. "This changes everything. The galaxy will watch Earth." For the first time, Daniel felt the weight of the stars on his shoulders. Inside the ship, Lyra explained more about her world. She told Daniel about the great star empire her family ruled, a kingdom of many planets, united by peace and strength. But enemies wanted to destroy it, rebels who hated the royal blood. "They want me gone," she said softly, "because I'm next queen." Daniel listened, amazed. He never dreamed the girl behind the church was royalty fighting for her life. Across galaxies. Vyn stood by the window. "They will not stop. They want control." "What about Earth?" Daniel asked. "Now part of war," Lyra said. "Humans strong. We need friends." Daniel looked around the ship. Technology beyond his wildest dreams. But he realized it wasn't just the tools that made them strong. It was trust, friendship, and courage. "Maybe I can help," he said. Quietly. Lyra smiled. "You already do." Days passed as they traveled through space. Lyra trained with Vane, learning how to control her powers better. Daniel helped wherever he could, learning to use the ship's systems slowly. One day, as they approached a distant star, a warning light flashed. Enemy ships had found them. "Battle time," Vane said. Daniel felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was no longer a small-town problem. It was a war in the stars. The enemy ships moved fast and fierce. They fired beams of energy and launched missiles. Lyra and Vane worked together, blocking attacks with powerful shields and firing back with glowing weapons. Daniel manned the controls, trying to keep the ship steady. He focused on every movement, every warning, learning fast. The fight was intense. The enemy was strong, but Lyra's royal blood gave her power. Vane's skill and Daniel's courage made them a strong team. Slowly, they pushed the enemies back. One by one, the ships fell or fled. When the battle ended, the stars were quiet again. Lyra looked at Daniel and Vane. "We win today, but war is not over." Daniel smiled tiredly. "Then we keep fighting, together, later." Lyra contacted her loyal forces. Many ships came to join her, a small fleet of friends and warriors who believed in her cause. She turned to Daniel. "You saved me. Now, you are part of this." Daniel shook his head. "I'm just a human." "No," Lyra said firmly. "You are brave, kind, and loyal. That is more than enough." Daniel felt a warmth he had never known. The galaxy was big, dangerous, and full of unknowns, but with friends like Lyra and Vane, he was ready to face whatever came. The fleet moved like a silver wave across the dark space. Lyra sat beside Daniel, watching the stars pass by. She was no longer the scared girl behind a church. She was a princess leading her people to safety. But she never forgot the human who saved her. Daniel looked at her quietly. "What happens next?" Lyra smiled softly. "We fight for peace, for my kingdom, and for Earth." The battle to come would be the greatest they had faced. Enemies had learned about Earth and its strong humans. They wanted to take control, to crush the hope Lyra carried. But the princess had a secret weapon, her bond with Daniel. As the fleet reached the edge of human space, alarms sounded. Enemy ships were waiting. They moved fast, their weapons glowing. Like angry stars, "Prepare for battle," Lyra ordered, her voice calm but strong. Daniel took his place at the control panel. Vane stood ready beside Lyra. The ship shook as the first beams hit their shields. The fight was fierce. Ships darted and spun, lasers and missiles filling the void. Daniel learned to pilot like never before, dodging attacks and helping to aim. Their weapons. Lyra's single quotes S-powers flared bright. She used waves of light to shield their fleet and strike the enemy. Her glowing hands held the strength of a queen born for war. Still, the enemy pressed hard. In the chaos, Daniel saw one enemy ship breaking through their defenses. It aimed for Lyra's ship. Incoming, he shouted. Vy and rushed to the weapons station, firing beams to stop the attacker. Daniel took control, guiding their ship away from danger. Lyra focused her energy, creating a barrier that pushed the enemy back. But the ship kept coming. Daniel acted quickly. He fired a missile, hitting the enemy's engine. The ship exploded in a flash of fire. "Nice shot," Vane said, clapping Daniel on the shoulder. Daniel smiled, heart pounding. He was no longer just a man from Earth. He was part of something bigger. After hours of battle, the enemy finally retreated. The fleet was damaged but alive. Lyra gathered her people. "This victory shows our strength. But the war is not over. The galaxy will not forget Earth or its human defender." Daniel felt proud. He looked at the princess who had come so far from a scared girl behind a church to a leader of stars. "Thank you," Lyra said softly, holding his hand. "You saved me. You saved us all." Daniel shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just helped." She smiled, eyes shining. "No, Daniel, you showed us humans are strong, brave, worthy." The fleet set course for Lyra's home planet. Peace would take time, but hope had returned. Daniel looked out the window at the stars. He thought about Earth, the quiet town, the old church, and the girl he found there. Now, he was part of a story written across galaxies. And wherever the future led, he knew one thing: humans were never weak. They were unstoppable.